Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with your charismatic host and prominent safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Be entertained and informed as the Safety Doc discusses both best and bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. The truth will keep you safe. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD.
This is Dr. David Perrodin, and I want to thank you as we begin another journey into school and community safety. If you're looking for industrial safety expert, Appalachian State University professor Dr. Timothy Ludwig, please visit www.safety-doc.com. Again, that's Dr. Timothy Ludwig at www.safety-doc.com. Hi, this is David Perrodin, the Safety Doc, and welcome to another episode of the Safety Doc Podcast. A thank you to John Granson, the 405 Media out of Los Angeles, California, airing the Safety Doc Podcast, 2 p.m. daily PST. Again, the 405media.com out of Los Angeles. I'm excited today because I have Jim Malliard on the show from Franklin, Pennsylvania, paranormal investigator.
Investigator. You're about ready to say expert. I don't know enough to call myself an expert, so we're just going to say investigator.
You know what? I've read, Jim. I've read a lot about you, and I've watched. I've checked out your episodes. I've listened to your episodes. I've watched pieces about you, and today we're going to kind of take a bit of a bird walk, and we're going to move away from paranormal into. It was about 2 weeks ago that we had the inbound missile alert for Hawaii, which, has basically become a non-story, although it's something that is very unsettling to me. I've researched, 9/11 extensively. I have a book that'll be coming out with Roman and Littlefield regarding that. I understand the DEFCON system, STRATCOM, and really that something like this shouldn't have even been possible at a local level. So in your field, you need to be empirical, and you are. I mean, that's one of the things I really like because, you point out several times, the stuff you see on TV that's out there to capture the ratings and stuff like that. That's not, the setting up and trying to, grab the empirical, findings from actually, doing the background research, being on site and compiling all of that. So you're an investigator. I mean, really, you have those skills. And I'm guessing this whole Hawaii thing, it doesn't set well with you as an investigator.
No, the whole thing never. No, I guess would start by saying I'm so surprised somebody had the preference of mind to take the screenshots they took of the warning, because I know I see those warnings and I just try to get rid of them as fast as I can. But then again, I guess I haven't seen that particular warning that kind of makes me pause and go, but still, you just got word that an inbound missile's coming. Take a screenshot of your phone. Now, that doesn't seem, but it happened, thankfully, because could you imagine if nobody actually caught this and it was just all hearsay?
Yeah. I mean,
that's the first point we want to jump into here.
Right. So we have evidence. We have a ton of evidence, and then not only the evidence of the event happening, but then of the highway signs that were modified. The message is modified to say there is not an inbound missile warning. Repeat, there is not a missile inbound warning. So not only the initial screenshots of what's coming across people's phones but then the mop up that happens after that. So before we get into that, Jim, I want to talk a little bit more about you. So Jim is the executive producer and host of the groundbreaking Malliard Report. Check it out, Malliard Report, Malliard Report. It's entertaining, it's enlightening. It's every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, right? Yep. In addition, it's internationally syndicated on many radio networks. You go in depth about specialists and research, reveal little-known facts, scientific investigation of real events. And this is something I thought was fascinating in learning more about you. Like in your community, you were the one who brought the awareness of the history of the community kind of to life. I mean, I read an article where somebody had interviewed you and then had kind of studied the work that you had done and really complimented you for your work more, your work to capture the history of the community and bring that out to people as part of what you do as an investigator. So I just want to put that out there.
Well, thank you for the kind words anyways. But it's important because everybody thinks that this all started with the TV shows that started in 2005, 2006, whenever it was. And people have been investigating the unknown for, well, since, I mean, the mid-1800s, mid-1800s, we were detecting seances and table tipping. I can't merge those two together. And, so it's been going on for a while. And I'm sure it was going on before that, but that's, I mean, as far back as I go.
This desk that I have, if there was an inbound nuclear missile, I would go underneath it because it actually was the sheriff's desk of Marathon County, Wisconsin in the 1940s. And my dad was a county supervisor in the 80s. And they were tearing down the courthouse. And they had this outside. And he said, "Can I have it?" They, loaded it on his pickup truck and is downstairs now. But if this thing starts to tilt, Jim, I'm out of here. So just so you know.
Well, I would believe it.
The show's up to you. So tell me a little bit more about like your background and the work that you do, and then also how you've honed your skills of being able to separate, I guess, what is hype or perception to what can be authenticated, and tell me about that.
Well, the hype versus what's real it's been a wrong process because there's so much information out there, especially in this new digital age with YouTube. Every day, probably thousands of quote unquote ghost videos are loaded, and maybe 1% are actually something that need reviewed again. And some of these are just people out there who want to make the money off ads. So as you start sifting through them and you start asking other people, "Hey, what do you think about this one?" So it's not only your own eyes, it's asking other people,
right.
Asking people with video experience, could you easily create this effect? Oh, well, and they send me this video of something that looks even better than the,
right.
I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just a process, and it's, there's not an easy way to do it. It's just the time. You got to put time into it.
Right. So you're credible. I mean, you are credible. So what have you done? I mean, and you have a crew that you work with. I guess what are the tenets that you talk about of saying, here's what we need to do to be credible in our practice?
Well, it's funny because I didn't do this back in the day, but now that I've heard Marcus Lemonis on The Prophet say it all the time, it kind of sticks with me. It's all about the process. We got to go in and we got to do it the same way. Of course, I wasn't using those words. I had a checklist, the evil checklist that people didn't like, but it was get out the same stuff, get timestamps on everything, note where we are, note anything like weather, who else is in the room. Because there's going to be if we're doing a private residential case, there's going to be other people in the room whose voices we may or may not know, or may not pick up on, especially if they, God forbid, whisper. We need to know, so somebody else was in the room. Let's go listen for a sample of their voice and compare and come back and go, oh, well, that screws all that up.
Right.
So it's all about the process, and then it's all about the process coming after the investigation. I love the word process now, because it all needs reviewed the same way by the same, different people through the years, but the same way. Multiple people, multiple times, and most of the time it all comes back to, we may have this one piece out of 8 hours.
So how about the background? Are you doing that? Is other team members, like looking into the site, here's the site originated, with structures 100 years ago, and this and this and this. So
we have a historian who loves to look into all the old history of not necessarily even the building, but I don't want to say community, but there's that block area, so to speak, if it's in town or acreage.
Okay.
And most of the time we get it back to 1850s when it broke out of the big parcels of land because they were giving them away to people in 100, 200 acre parcels at the time. So it always goes back that far, or most of the time if we can get it back that far, which is really cool because at that point there wasn't that many people here in Western Pennsylvania.
Right.
So these big farms, you kind of figure if you start tracking back forward through after that, you can go, okay, so this has been a homestead since 1940.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of figure out who somewhat has lived there, and
So-
gives you a better idea.
How far are you from Gettysburg? I'm just
Well,
curious.
I am about 5.5, 6 hours from there, but that is where this all started for me.
Okay.
So it's funny you mentioned that. My son, who was 7, 8 months at the time, started talking to something that in the room we were doing a ghost stories, and there was just me and this other couple, and cute old couple, and us with our son, and this guy's telling all these great stories, and you're sitting, oh, this is all great and well.
Yeah.
And then he starts babbling at something off to the side of the storyteller, and you go,
Oh, wow.
and then he starts telling his story about this kid that was killed outside the hotel, and you go, but I'm not really, it's going in one ear out the other, because he's just carrying on this full-blown conversation, well, in babble, with something he can't see. And he doesn't do that.
Amazing.
He wasn't doing that at home. Yeah, I mean, it was like 10 to 15 minutes, and at home it was, 3, 4 minutes, and he was off to something else, and this was going on. I'm like, maybe there is something to this. And then the next day we went out to Devil's Den, and I seen
yes.
some.
Right.
I seen a reenactor that I want to get my picture taken with. So, being the guy I am, I don't blink. I just go grab the camera and go to do it. And I get over to where he was, and I can't find him.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm looking in the parked cars. I mean, it's a one-way street through there. So I'm like, I didn't see any cars come up over the hill. I don't see him down getting in a car or changing so that kind of led me into thinking about what I'd just seen and what I'd just seen the day before.
Right.
So that 6-hour ride home kind of left a lot more questions than answers. And then I started talking to other people about it, and then started looking for it more. And I guess we're here today.
Yeah. Well, it's a family trip I want to take also in a year. And this summer we're going out to South Dakota. So, we'll be doing Battle Little Bighorn, the site, which I've read, is a a frequently investigated site, by people investigating paranormal activity, potential paranormal activity. So and then Gettysburg is like a year. Now, this is my interest. We went to Disney in March, so now my girls, who are 7 and 11, my wife, kind of have to be flexible and kind of do things that are a little bit on Dad's interest level here. But so, I love this, and I appreciate your work, the Malliard report. Let's get into a topic that as soon as this happened, it didn't set well with me. And then I had shared some information out of just, were there other people out there that this didn't sit well with? And you had contacted me. And of course, you're an investigator, and I'm the more I think about this and the more time passes, the more this doesn't make sense. And I'm trying to understand. Okay, so it was on Saturday, January 13th, Hawaii had a false missile alert in the morning. So across people's cell phones, they're getting the alert, which everyone is going to be aware of. I mean, who's listening to this, saying inbound missiles, like take cover, which nobody knows what to do, basically, because there hasn't been any formal training, and really there isn't much you can do.
Yeah, anyway, I was going to say, what do you do? But right, anyways, go ahead.
And Jim, one of the things is like the city planners, like New York, all of the major metros, Baltimore, Houston, LA, they know, the city planners know you cannot plan. New York City doesn't do mass drills because you can't plan for this because you don't have the infrastructure to evacuate. You have 10 to 15 minutes at most. So it is one of those things where, you don't have the drills for this. But the other part is, from a system standpoint, something like this, interpret it, and it having a ripple effect. Somebody sees this in Hawaii, all of a sudden California picks up on this, and somebody has the independent ability to issue an alert, which shouldn't happen. Like, it's not like every locale does their own report of saying how they have this. In the fact of, like, Hawaii doesn't have a detection system to identify missiles coming in. I live in Wisconsin. We don't have an identification system, but this the proper channel for this, per my research, is any notifications for inbound missiles would come straight from Stratcom, which would be basically NORAD, and Offutt, Air Force Base would be a part of that. And that would be bounced through military intelligence. And we're all talking, like 3-4 minutes that this would happen. And then it gets into the emergency broadcast system, and it is centrally then out of Stratcom that it goes to the locations. And this would have gone not only probably to Hawaii, but this would have probably gone to the, to California and to the coastal cities and whatever. But there is no way that this should ever have been able to happen at a local level. And, during the nuclear, the Kennedy, the Cuban Missile Crisis, I mean, there were redundant ways, because something like this during the Cuban Missile Crisis would have triggered a reaction from Russia. I mean, we were both sides were at the trigger. So that's part of it. This happens, and it's like, I remember the 1983 movie War Games with Matthew Broderick, when the Whopper computer took over and all of that stuff, and it just, the craziness. But so this happens, but then there really isn't an explanation, except we hear a little while later, well, there was a person who, and I've got the explanation. So the warning that went through said, emergency alert. This is what people were seeing on their phones. They took screenshots. Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. So the whole thing is that there's an employee, they're doing a test of the emergency missile warning system, again, which locally should not exist. This only should exist through Stratcom and NORAD. Anyway.
Well,
yeah.
I was going to say, what would be the difference between the emergency missile system test, is that what you just said?
Right.
And the emergency broadcast system. So we're supposed to hear that's supposed to be two different programs? Is that what you just, or is that what we're accusing them of saying here?
Well, what should have happened is EBS should have been the one that issued the missile alert. Like, there should be no independent system that exists outside of EBS. And that's what they're kind of, that's what happened here, is this system was triggered outside of the emergency broadcast system. So it's the nodal system to hook this together doesn't make sense in this explanation of just saying, oh, we tested this locally. Well, no, you don't. Like, you don't test this locally. You can run your EBS drills, but what happens at night? It's like, 10, 11, 12 midnight, it's like beep, wait for a message from emergency broadcast. And then it just says, this has been a test of the emergency broadcast system. That's all that happens. It only tests the bandwidth in the system. It does not come across and say inbound missile, nuclear, or, whatever. And it doesn't do that. EBS isn't there for like issuing tornado warnings and things like that. That is, that's done through the media in the National Weather Service, centers pair up for that. But this doesn't make any sense. And to say that one person activated this system, so let's say it was an accident. Okay, let's say for some reason this is some pilot software that was out there that they didn't have properly interfaced in with Stratcom. Then you don't really do much to explain it, and you sweep it under the rug.
Okay, I'll give you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
little stand isn't holding up to.
All right. I just didn't know if there was a missile strike by you or anything, Franklin. Nope, you're still looking good here on radar. So
I need a better system for this. I told you I was rebuilding my studio, and this is kind of the perks of doing it before I'm ready. Okay, I'll give you. Okay, you open this new program, and you wanted to try it out. What message are you going to type in there to try it out? Hey, this is a test. Hey, we brought this new program online. Hey,
right.
Say hello to all my text all my friends. Here, text this number because I hate them. Right? I mean,
right.
We're going to be far down the list before I say, hey, there's a missile coming in. I'm not even sure that ever crosses my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't it be like this is a test of the system and right.
So we washed that out because, like I said, how far down the list of things can you text everybody in Hawaii before you get to, hey, this is a missile coming in? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So you have this, and then I guess. And right now, as of today, we've learned that the person who apparently did this is not cooperating with authorities. Why? If this is part of your job and it was an accident, why is this person not cooperating? What would be the rationale for that?
There isn't any, unless they did it on purpose, unless they went above and beyond or outside of their parameters of their workload or something. I can't explain it, because I guess they're worried about getting charged maybe with some sort of...
Yeah, I mean, so what I'm thinking is, I mean, what if this was someone that volitionally did this and now, they don't want to talk about it because this was maybe, this was an intentional act, but then in that case, they probably have representation, or I would think you would have the military, CIA, FBI, whatever the agencies are to come in and to put somebody else and say, here was the person, and person comes in, This reminds me of kind of like the Bob Lazar, Area 51, back in the 1980s when he came on and did his revelation, on the Las Vegas News at Night about Area 51. I'm wondering if there's somebody that didn't know that I still think, to do that right now really ramps this up, because I'm thinking what holes are in the system and what is preventing this from happening 5 minutes from now, and what could, this could happen not only in Hawaii, but what if it's Hawaii? What if it's Guam? What if it is,
We'll take Japan? It to the ultimate level. What if it's California?
Yeah.
Because we know they tend to overreact to things out there. So could you imagine the mass hysteria this would cause in California?
Right. Trying to evacuate and trying to get shelter. It would be the scene from, are you familiar with the 1983 movie, The Day After?
No, but I could just imagine. Well, you look at the traffic they get into every day.
Yeah.
I mean, times that by 100, because everybody's trying to get to who knows where, because if it's inbound towards California, they're just trying to get out of the state.
Right. So I mean, and you're talking again, we're talking 10, 15 minutes. And if they would have, you accompany this with someone then at local, city emergency who says, well, we have to do now the air raid sirens, and all of a sudden it's air raid sirens and it's the next community over. It's like, oh my goodness, LA has just gone full active and now we go active. And something fascinating out of the 9/11 attacks, the U.S. went down to DEFCON 3. So DEFCON 3 is getting your bombers ready to go, but not out on the runway. So like at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, which actually I went past. Actually, I went to a wedding out in Nebraska and ended up, the Garmin took me astray, and I ended up on the backside of Offutt Air Force Base, driving past like barriers. And I'm kind of like, this one area where it's like, don't go any further. And it's like just empty field. And I'm like, it can't be here. And there's no way I should be here. But anyway, for those people, aren't familiar, Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska is really is your main area domestically where you would be scrambling your nuclear bombers out of Offutt Air Force Base. Now, Offutt, went to... Well, the U.S. went to DEFCON 3, on 9/11, which people didn't know for years later. It wasn't released. And, if you go to DEFCON 2 means, you're runway ready at that point to take off. And I would not be surprised, Jim, if we learn that this triggered, at least like drop. DEFCON 5 is everything's fine, and 4 is standby. 3 is to mobilize, and 2 is runway ready, and 1 is to go. That this did not drop down to DEFCON 4, and we're not going to learn about it. But part of what is hitting me right now, we're less than 2 weeks out. This story died immediately. Yeah. Like this thing was they were handing out fly swatters to anyone that would take a swing at this thing to try to kill it. And there's been some of the Congress folks from Hawaii are like, we need this investigated, whatever. And it's like, okay, you've got your tweets out about that, but no one's responding. There's nothing. I mean, what do we hear? The mainstream media and the president going here or this is happening and whatever. And we rewind this, and we literally are on something that could be interpreted and spiral into war. I mean, not to overreact, but literally has this interpreted.
Well, if somebody gets if the wrong person gets that message on their phone, they assume it's correct. So what do? They send up, like you were saying, send up a bunch of planes or call somebody closer to North Korea and say, hey, get them up. It's done. Let's do this. Yeah. Now we're at war because of somebody oh, yeah, I didn't mean to send that. Well, we've already dropped millions of pounds of bombs on North Korea. Whoops.
So what do you think might have been? Let's take the look at what if this was done intentionally? What would be the purpose of, and maybe not even saying one person doing this intentionally, but from a national level, from a military level, what would be the purpose of doing this?
Well, it's clearly speculation because obviously neither of us know why somebody would do this, but let's say to cause hysteria, to see if it works. At some point, if it was just a single person, like
right.
we suspect it is, to get a level of infamy, because fame isn't what you're looking for at this point, but notoriety to be that guy. I mean, I'm pulling at straws here because I can't figure out a reason that would be, obviously, unless you turn it into a book deal someday, I guess there might be that opportunity. Why I did it, maybe. That's like picking up spaghetti at this point. I can't think of a good reason anybody would want to put their name attached to that. And obviously somebody did. Or hopefully they figured out, maybe this person doesn't want to talk because they knew it wasn't them. Like, right. You leave your Facebook open and somebody else posts on your account kind of deal. But I guess I would want to come clean and say, hey, it wasn't me. But you don't know who it is.
And I'm thinking from a PR standpoint and from a credibility standpoint that there would have been a jump on this through military channels, within 72 hours and put a face to it, even if it's not accurate, but just tell the public, whatever, this was it. And I mean, my God, contact me. I can write the cover story for you in 30 minutes. All right. I mean, we're testing this at interfaces. This is all out of Stratcom, and this was, whatever, and we have this, and this is how this happened, and then it was whatever. But that didn't even come out, and now you've got somebody though, rogue, and I think that is throwing more into this. So I'm, I guess I can take this as a face value of maybe locally there was something that happened. Although, again, I don't see how this would have been disconnected from Stratcom unless there was just some bizarre carelessness, or I just don't understand it because the stakes are absolutely so high on something like, and we didn't hear anything from Stratcom. I did a lot of work with digging through any releases from Stratcom, or basically NORAD on this, and nothing saying like, how this happened on its own. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, we could have a repeat of this, or what if this was a hack? I mean, that's the other part. You cannot let that information out. If this was a hack, you imagine what that would do, to say that,
but would you already put, not necessarily the hack story, would you already go with, hey, we got John Doe over here, he acted alone, put that, more fake news out there about it.
Well, right. I mean, but absolutely, that's the part, Jim, I don't get, though. I don't get it, because you and I can work this out, and you're thinking that you put a face to it, and you have some statement, not even that you have that person just said that yeah, this system, and whatever wasn't, but you've got that, you have this and whatever, but none of that's there. And now, and why would you release that this person is not cooperating with authorities?
It seems like anti-conspiratorial at this point. Like, they're trying so hard not to leave me 5 years from now finding out, oh, somebody hacked it or whatever.
Right.
They're trying to be so careful now in the front end, where it's like you're leaving more questions. No matter what you do at this point, I guess you're leaving more questions than answers for us. But you're really leaving us more questions, like a lot more questions than we should have. Because
right.
I think most people, like you're saying, even most people now are worried about it now. So how many people are going to be digging back into it years from now and saying, wonder what the real truth is to this case? Yeah,
this will forensically start to make sense down the road. And somebody will, will share something. I mean, some files will come out and but as time also, conflates memories and things get lost and whatever. But I think what we know right now will change. I mean, will morph. And so, okay, so this, I guess, tell me about your reaction when you first learned, that this had happened in the morning of Saturday, January 13th in Hawaii. What was your thought?
Well, when I seen it on Twitter, my first thought was, well, I'm here for the duration now, because I've got to see what, if it actually hits, if it hits the water, if it blows up in the air. So I'm just sitting and refreshing my Twitter, like, probably drained a lot of my phone battery that morning, just waiting for the shoe to drop. That it actually, so, and then I realized 45 minutes just went by, and I'm like, well, we should know something. Somebody should be sending us this footage from the other island of the other one just being disappeared or whatever. And it didn't come. And then probably, what was it, like 3 or 4 hours later?
Yeah, that was really strange.
It took that long to clean that up.
It was a delay. So actually, so I'm looking at the timeline right now. So it looks like, they had about 30 minutes, and then there was awareness by Kirk Caldwell, the mayor of Honolulu, that the tweets were in air. But for it to get its ripple effect and cleaned up, it did take longer than that. Like, I said, I've got pictures they were dispatching, like the construction signs of, changing road pattern ahead, but it said missile alert was false. But
I don't follow the mayor of Honolulu, so I didn't see it.
But here was something too. There's little pieces in this though that also bring about other questions. So 8:34 a.m. So let me run this back. So this goes at 8:07 a.m. People's phones are getting, they're all buzzing, and it's like inbound missile alert, take cover. If you're in Hawaii. So we take that out to 8:34, or basically a half hour later. The U.S. Pacific Command, okay, so we're talking the U.S. Pacific Command, says it's detected no missile threat and that the alert was sent in air. So I'm thinking, okay, so at some point then now this has got involved with Stratcom. Stratcom's got a message out to the PAC Command saying, hey, check this out. So again, what was scrambled, what was radar picking up, or things like that, because there would be visual verification. Plus, you can detect a nuclear launch the moment it happens from not only seismic, but from heat signature from satellite. So it's not like. So anyway, if they know about this before. The PAC Command is getting word of this and verifying this. This to me is saying, no, somewhere in this, Stratcom got notified. Stratcom was contacting, in seeing, hey, is anything happening out there? But that's happening allegedly in the timeline after everything has just been cleared of saying, oh, Pete pressed the wrong button.
Well, and riddle me this one. This is the important question that I have about this all. These people tweeting is fine. Why didn't they re-access the system they sent the message out with and sent the, oh, sorry, go about your day message back out that way, instead of leaving people blowing the wind with traffic signs and all this other stuff?
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
That's great because, okay, so it was the Hawaii governor. So we talked before about Kirk Hall, the mayor of Honolulu. Hawaii governor, David, I don't know if it's IGE, whatever it is. So he goes on Facebook and at 8:30 and he's posting that this thing has been canceled. So he's hoping people are going to follow him on Facebook. So he's doing this on Facebook. You know, it's not this government thing. You're right. The same system that issues it should be able to 5 minutes, 3 minutes later issue a, hey, that was false, everything's fine. But that doesn't happen. It doesn't come out of the same system. It has to filter through these other social media branches and you know, getting out to people who might be evacuating on the roads and putting up the signs and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to get it through your phone, but they don't do that. So that is a riddle. And I don't, you know, so I think, and what I'm trying to do here, Jim, is like, you know, I'm not trying to solve this. I'm trying to say, the more I think about this, I'm like, damn, you know, I know this stuff pretty well. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say we're on point with this, and then the only thing that makes sense is that people got the message. We can agree about that.
Right. So the steps that are happening after this are very perplexing to me because it seems like there were very logical ways. And even before you would have done something like this, you would have had some discussion of, if the worst happens, like something we goof up on this, like here's our instant button to press and you know, we tell people whatever. But you know, this doesn't play out well. I don't think, again, this lends to me like, well, I can see if it was hacked into, yeah, you'd have a hard time maybe securing this down. PAC command is in. We don't get anything from Stratcom. I checked, you know, there was, it's all, they're not going to tell you, but there was nothing, you know, no activity at Offutt Air Force Base. There was nothing to happen with, you know, with DEFCON level, but still, and so, you know, it gets into the aftermath. This is out of the Sun Times. Yeah. So anyway, the Chicago Sun Times, the aftermath, the civil defense employee has been reassigned. All right. I know, buddy, made one mistake. Come on. I mean, and they said
is that reassigned or promoted? I'm not sure. Did you?
And the thing is, Jim, they said they had a different overlay to the system. Like it was not what anybody was used to. So, I was reading through this. So they say, you know, it's like back in the days of the, you know, in television video game system in 82, where you had to keep flipping out the cards if you're playing, you know, blackjack or baseball or whatever, like you had the wrong one in. But I'm like, so he's been reassigned. Like, why did you reassign him? Like, I mean, this seems like this is a systemic error that should have multiple checks and balances. And if it happened, this isn't just this guy unless he intentionally did this. That would be the reassignment, but reassigned to jail.
Well, okay, so how is this a pre-programmed message then? Like
it would be pre-programmed out of
I'm just trying to figure because it's different interface. So that tells me we got a bunch of buttons on a desk somewhere. or a touch screen or something, and you just ran up and pushed it.
Right. But again, Jim, what should have happened when they pushed that is it would have been an activation of the emergency broadcast system, which we've all heard, like the beeps, and then this is whatever, and tuned to this station, and that's it. Or else it should have said like on but I mean, people in Hawaii too, even if you're running something like this, I would think the first thing would be like tsunami. Like if I get some beeping on my phone and everybody's phone around me is beeping, I'm like, oh, there's been like seismic movement, and we have a tsunami warning. It's going to, come out. But so the aftermath, they reassign the employee. It doesn't make any sense, especially when we hear today, like, this person is completely, shut himself off. But and then where Bob Lazar flew like a pirate flag in his front yard and just crazy stuff. But anyway, Hawaii Emergency Management has suspended all warning system tests until the investigation is complete. Yes, of course, obvious. Hawaii Emergency Management System will require a 2-person confirmation procedure before an alert can be sent. That to me seems just stupid.
Well, if you've got one rogue employee, what's the odds of getting another one?
Yeah, if we would have just had Carol in the room, she checks these things. She's really into detail.
Well, it was on the weekend, so that the second person was probably off. So they just said, eh.
So I'm like, so your answer to the brink of nuclear war is to bring in one other person. But we see, but
it was that person that was reassigned. So don't worry, it's.
And they type fast, they're like 50. Yeah. But I mean, but this is the thing. We see this stuff on TV, the documentaries about the nuclear silos. And what do you have? I mean, you've got, or like the Hunt for Red October is not good, but Crimson Tide. I mean, but and these are movies, but, I had friends who worked on nuclear subs. And they said, obviously, yeah, you had redundant measures as you're going through these drills, in the missile silos and all of that, like the turning the key and, breaking the cracker thing and getting the codes out. And I mean, so you just don't have another person next to you. Like, which button again was it, Carol, here? Because we've got, they've added other ones here. Which
one's the intercom and which one's the send
Which one's the intercom? This one will get me an outside line. So it's part of our phone. What? Wait a second. Whoa. What? Oh, okay.
Why is my phone going off? Wait, this isn't right.
But and we joke about it, but because it's so ludicrous.
What else can we do about it?
But this response. I mean, who puts this statement out there of saying we have a 2-person confirmation procedure we've put in place? I mean. Oh, and then here's the last one. Hawaii Emergency Management will install a computer process to rapidly issue alert cancellations, including cell phone alerts. Well, don't you already have that? Because you issued the warning, as you said. You already have the system. So
apparently they need to add a whole bunch of new buttons.
So you need a second system to issue a cancellation because it's the same system. I mean, Jim, this drives me crazy. And here's where this is going to hit me in the work that I do. So I work with school districts all across the country, and actually a lot of districts on the West Coast, and a lot of the big districts on the West Coast on school safety. But one of the things that's going to start showing up immediately in their safety plans will be, what do we do if there is an inbound missile attack? And it's going to be there. Actually, I have a phone conference with one of the largest districts out there that I regularly consult with, and I'm going to ask them this in early February when we meet, and say, how is this impacting you? Because definitely it is going to now be something that they are going to incorporate in all of their school safety plans. It's crazy because, I mean, there's only so much you can do on stuff like this, and we talked about that. And it's the reality. The reality is this is going to result in millions and millions of dollars of unnecessary time and effort in planning for something that you're not going to be able to mitigate anyway. The old duck and cover stuff. But so I'm going to pull back. I want your perspective. I've shared what the official thing is from from Hawaii. Give me your thoughts, and also like as an investigator, what red flags are coming up with you, or what are some things you're obviously like this is like the obvious.
I think we've talked about some of the red flags that are coming up. Why didn't they just cancel it the same way they put it out? I guess why wasn't there a two-person system in place before this? Just so many little things that just go. So one guy could say, "Hey, we're sending bombs." Okay, wait, what?
Yeah, and then Ted's like, "Hey, my phone just rang. I just sent it."
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh no! But now what do I do? Because I just pushed the button. My phone. I got on my phone, but I don't have a cancel button. So I better do what? Sit here and hope the phone doesn't ring and somebody figures out it was me. I mean,
right.
And you're asking as an investigator. Well, at any turn, you go, boy, that doesn't add up. Boy, that doesn't add up. You mentioned tweets and Facebook. Well, when did I don't know. I didn't look this up. But when did the local TV radio coverage of this start? It would be after the tweets and after the Facebook, because there would be a confirmed source then.
Yeah, it was about 8:45 that the FEMA system was activated in Hawaii, which would have then basically been the emergency broadcast system, but not as coming out of Stratcom, but like FEMA, like Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Harvey and things like that. But FEMA then had the ability to go in and to activate and through their system send cell phone, TV, radio messages that the alert was false. So again, the system which initially sent this was not the system which corrected it. And it comes out of this, and I saw it go, it was busy on hashtags for a day. And then it kind of disappeared. And so, yeah, I just don't know.
You're bringing up an interesting question here, though. Because if it was a hack, we'll just say if it was, how many of these different programs have access to all the phones, the different TV, radio? I mean, if you could hack literally everything, think about the power you have at that point over Hawaii or whatever. I mean, if it's a state-to-state system or a national system, just imagine the panic, hysteria, mess you would create if you sent that message to everybody in the United States instead of just Hawaii.
Oh yeah. It was, and I bring this story up because in October 31st, 1938, Orson Welles did War of the Worlds, the radio broadcast, and people listening to that, a number of them believed it was authentic. Police officers, doctors, professors, and there was a researcher out of Princeton who immediately went out with some graduate students, and they started to interview people. Like I think it was within a day of this happening, so it was still fresh. And a number of people stood by their story, like that they authentically had still seen things and people are reporting in like, I'm seeing this. So to start a mass panic, if you have the ability to do this, if this was like a little bit of a dip in the water of somebody saying, or even like a North Korea or whatever saying, hey, just so you know, like, we could do this. But yeah, you would have a panic. And then the other part is people, even if you said that this never happened, you would still have people. There was a professor at a university. Again, I don't know if it was Princeton, but it was through this investigative team. And he came out and he said, this War of the Worlds, no, this was completely authentic. Like now there's a cover up by the government and people believed him. I mean, because you had a trust kind of in the media. But there were people in 1938 who were rushing to buy tickets to get out of New York. Again, police who were saying they were tracking these things in real time, which did not exist. So the power of manipulation. But we talk about this in the power of persuasion. But it's one. This is again something that you get somebody to take this from a military standpoint, or you're right, this gets texted over instantly to somebody who is living in Guam or whatever, and now it goes viral. And you look at the time to verify this, you have to go DEFCON 3 at something like this. I mean, you have,
if not higher.
Right. You have to scramble if. So I mean, it creates almost this self-fulfilling prophecy where the fact is the information is validated just by the fact that there's so much of it that is happening. There's this ripple effect. One town is falling after another, is falling after another, or one state with these reports. I mean, that's the thing. Today, people don't, and it was the same thing in War of the Worlds. People do not fact check. And let me tell you this, Jim. So my 83-year-old aunt lives about an hour away from, we have a fighter jet base in Wisconsin. And they flew over her house and her community, caused 3 sonic booms. And the first one, pretty substantial. She had pictures fall off the wall, people had cracked ceilings and stuff like that. And the first thing she did is, she's looking outside. Her neighbors are going outside. They're thinking, is this a bomb? Is this a factory explosion? She goes to her radio, local radio, tunes it in, and they say, hey, there's been, it's a sonic boom. You're going to hear 2 more. So she does the sensible thing, but she has people around her not doing the sensible thing. So we're not hearing this in the media. We're not hearing anybody come. We're not seeing a special on 60 Minutes or 2020 or somebody saying this is what could have happened. That's the other part too. Like I'm waiting, right away. Like capture this on a news story. We have an active shooter situation. We have the shooter situation in Vegas. In what was it, October 1st. And every newscast is going out to every police officer saying, well, what if that happened in our community? What if it happened, here, there, and, Madison, they were down talking to the police chief and this and that, and, but here, none of that, none of that. Well, it was passing and the local news didn't even, none of that.
Yeah, it's the biggest non-story that I've seen in years, and I don't get it. And is it because it's not? Well, it's got the violence. I mean, because you were talking about violence. I mean, that's clearly violence, war. I mean, it's got all the points of interest that you'd think a local station would want to pick up on. Call you up and say, what do you do if you get this warning on your phone?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And some kind of documentary and getting somebody, to come out and speak of what happens if this does turn into hysteria event or what are the systems in play. That was the other thing. Like I was expecting some kind of, spokesperson again from Stratcom or whatever to talk about the systems in place, because it's not like those type of documentaries haven't been done, and not that you'd have to give out information that would compromise national security, but even from that, I mean, that was really fuzzy.
Well, even this, okay, we're talking about the text message alert system. Okay, so we've had this system for 10 years. We've used it 70 times for this, that, and the other. We failed, an employee failed us this on whatever day it was. We're sorry for any inconvenience. Drive home safely. That's all they had to do.
Right.
The spokesman run out, don't answer any questions about it. Was, we're going to take steps to prevent it in the future. And that's it. But we didn't get that from anybody, from either, nobody has come out and said, hey, we messed up. Or,
yeah.
But we're going to fix it now with 2 people. Okay. Right. I guess they did come out and say that much. Okay.
Right. So that throws, it throws me, for a curve, because that would have been the way to handle it. And you're right, that would have quickly just brought an end to it. You would have still had some people, questioning some things and whatever. But I mean, 99% of people would have been, okay, we get it. Like, we got it. We're fine, moving on. And it's gotten very strange. I do feel, I have some sense that this isn't the end. I am not sure that we're not going to have something trigger in another area. And if that happens, then I think we've got something really,
then we've got a problem
serious on our hands.
Somebody's going to have to answer to it if it happens twice.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I guess, it's kind of, we get toward maybe wrapping some of this up, but, I also haven't seen any professional development come out of anything like this, of saying, if you do get an alert, here's a way to verify it. Like here's a secondary source you can go to, which might be, television or radio, or, that in concert there would be, the sirens to go with it or whatever. So there wasn't anything really like that, which I would have anticipated. So I don't know. It's not, again, that it doesn't add up to me.
No, like I said, do we feel any better about this now than when we started?
No, we don't, and there isn't an overt effort to do that. I mean, it has strangely though become silent, but I don't think it's become silent. It's like the bell that somebody puts their hands on so it doesn't resonate anymore. I think there's some hands on this bell to stop it from resonating, because this to me is like, I can't believe this. I mean, and I'm thinking, the stories that are going to go with this, and the interviews with people, and I didn't see people. I'm watching the news. I didn't see interviews with people from Hawaii. I didn't. That also kind of threw me. And even like a week after, or something like, it was 1 week ago. You got up in the morning, but no.
Yeah, it's been it's strange. It's like I said, there's nothing here that makes any sense besides the one fact that they got the message.
Yeah. I had a friend who was going on her honeymoon and arrived a few hours after this had concluded, arrived in Hawaii. And we talked about this, because the event had wrapped up by that time. But the question she had was, where would we have landed in the plane if we're
true
inbound and this happens and we couldn't have landed? Or were they still? They had 30 minutes here. Were they still landing planes? I'm guessing they were. So again, it makes for a really strange scenario, and it's one of those things. Either there could have been a better cover story.
Yeah, like I said, we could paint it one way or the other for you. Between the two of us, we could create the character. We could create he had a bad day, had a fight with his wife, went into work, decided to throw everybody's day in the chaos like his was.
Yeah, show some blurry thing of like kind of a controller thing or
some guy with his back turned on his phone. Oh.
Yeah, the images, the narrative, nothing adds up. Thank you for listening to the Safety Doc Podcast with your host, Dr. David Perodin. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Podbean, or Stitcher. Follow on Twitter @SafetyPhD and visit the official website for detailed blog posts and more at safetyphd.com. A thank you to this episode's guest, paranormal investigator Jim Malliard, who helped us analyze the Hawaii missile crisis and how that narrative just seems to get stranger by the day. Learn more about Jim at Malliard.com. Again, Malliard.com, Malliard.com.